Thank you. Indeed, this is a very broad subject, but I'll try, to cover the most important things during the limited time that we have available. First of all, I would like to thank for inviting us to the panel, to the conference. And again, I will start by giving short information about our power, because this is a brand that might not be known widely in Romania. It is quite known in other countries where we operate, particularly in Poland, from where we come from. And our power is actually the largest Polish PV developer / IPP. But now we are operating in 6 countries, so not only in Poland, also in Romania, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Germany. Our total operational or close operational portfolio is 1 gigawatt of PV, mainly in Poland, but also we have first optional project outside of Poland, namely in Portugal. Our total development pipeline is 27 gigawatts, out of which close to 5 gigawatts is with grid rights obtained. And in Romania, our pipeline is 1.5 gigawatts of PV and 1.5 gigawatts of battery storage, with first PV projects under construction. And our target is to have around 100 megawatts of PV operational by the end of 2025. And when it comes to commercialization, our main tool are PPAs. So PPAs are very close to our hearts. In the past, in Poland, some of our first projects were supported by Polish CFDs, and we have had actually very good experience with Polish CFDs. And I know this is not the focus of the panel and of the presentation, but maybe I will add also a few comments about CFDs in Romania before we jump into the role of PPAs in decarbonization. However, in Poland right now, our focus are PPAs. And for the new projects, we've been signing PPAs, both utility and corporate, although corporate are the majority, and also both financial and virtual and physical. And here the split is roughly 50-50, so 50% of physical and 50% of virtual. Although I must admit that when the new opportunity arises, more often they are actually financial. So we see that increasingly the off-takers are recognizing the ease and facility of signing a financial PPA. Physical PPA is much more difficult. The process is much more protracted. Although, on the other hand, some of the off-takers, which are not accustomed to have financial instruments accounting, they may opt for physical instead of financial. But I fully agree in terms of process, financial is much easier, much quicker, and much nicer to negotiate and manage, I would say. Before we jump into the PPAs, because we exchanged some comments about the CFD, so maybe just a few comments from our side. We are fairly excited about Romanian CFDs. As I said, we have had very good experiences with Polish CFD system. And in general terms, we like the CFD being proposed in Romania, although there are some features which have been already mentioned during the previous presentations, which are raising some of our doubts. And I think they are raising doubts from both the equity point of view, but also probably from the bankability point of view. And we heard from the representatives of the banks that some comments were submitted to the government, and I understand not all of them have been taken into account. And if I could mention some of the features that I think are maybe worth trying to revisit and maybe should be subject to a continued conversation with the government, is the termination payment, especially in the context of termination without cause. And I agree with what was said during one of the previous presentations, that the termination payment should be based on forward-looking forecast of prices, not on the historical prices. That sort of undermines the idea of the termination payment, that it will be compensation for foregone revenue that will not be achieved due to termination, and should not be looking at the historical revenue under the PPA. And also, without going into details, maybe the subject for conversation in the during the breaks, but we believe that the indexation formula simply does not work. It's strange. I mean, in our view, the formula does not reflect the compounded inflation that could occur over the 3 years period. So, the threshold of 110% is one thing, but we believe the formula simply does not reflect the inflation that could occur during within the indexation period. And now, diving into the PPAs, how they can contribute to decarbonization, and why we believe they are attractive for end customers who are aiming at both decarbonization and managing long-term volatility of electricity prices. First of all, let me begin by saying that from ESG point of view, green PPAs are a very convenient way of managing Scope 2 emissions. And maybe very quick reminder what Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions are. Scope 1 emissions are what I would call direct emissions from the installations or assets which are used by a business in its activity, for instance, for a manufacturing plant. Scope 2 are emissions which are embedded in the energy which is used by a business for its operations, so electricity, heat, and power. And Scope 3 are emissions which are embedded in the rest of the supply chain of a business. And as I said, Scope 2 emissions are very easily managed by long-term PPAs, because if a business enters into a PPA with electricity which comes from a renewable source, which again will be documented by guarantees of origin, then such a PPA can be accounted against reduction of Scope 2 emissions. So what an off-take gains from a long-term PPA is that for a period of the PPA, be it 10 years, it can be also shorter, the part of its electricity consumption which is covered by the PPA will be considered as green and as reducing the emissions. From the ESG point of view, I think it is also worth mentioning why the subject of ESG is increasingly and imminently becoming more important. We need to remember about the ESG reporting requirements, which are expanding, and the CSRD directive, which is coming into force, will require all of the large businesses to implement ESG reporting, including on its E part, i.e. environmental sustainability. And already for the listed public companies, the reporting requirement refers to year 24. So already in the reports made for 24 in next year in 25, the ESG must be taken into account. And this obligation will grow and expand to other businesses over time until 29, so that all large enterprises within the European Union will be required to perform ESG reporting by 29. And of course, the reporting itself does not imply specific documentation targets for the businesses, but it means that there will be full transparency how each of the businesses which is covered by the ESG reporting, how it contributes to ESG goals, how it is decarbonizing. So it will be for the entire public to assess how this particular business is performing from the point of view of ESG commitments. And just to reiterate, a long-term PPA with renewable source allows to contribute to decarbonization and allows to manage long-term electricity price volatility. And I would also say that PPAs are considered to be a higher quality decarbonization tool than just being standalone guarantees of origin. The greenwashing term was mentioned a few times during the presentation, the previous presentations. And while we can discuss whether buying standalone, unbundled guarantees of origin is actually greenwashing or not, many corporates perceive that they do better by entering a PPA where they can tie their power consumption directly to a specific identifiable renewable energy source, so that this corporate can point such a volume of power we're buying from a very specific identified PV, wind, or other type of renewable source. And also, what we see increasingly is that the corporates are very much concerned about the quality of the asset providing electricity. So it's not just the type of technology. It's wind that's okay, or PV is okay. More and more we see, especially multinational corporates, paying attention to the exact location of the plant, to the type of the soil it is located on the distance from environmentally protected areas. And as I said, those corporates are very careful about what kind of asset is assigned to them, and which will be providing the green electricity. And you cannot achieve this by simply buying unbundled GEOs. You need to have a PPA which ties your power procurement to a specific asset.